So what I want to show you is really happening. When you walk out of here, you can come over to our Comcast booth, and this is the next generation of Xfinity TV. So let's turn it on. So the first thing you'll see is we're watching ESPN television. You can pull up our guide, and you can click in, and you'll see television shrinks up. It feels like some of the guides you've seen, but it's got all sorts of state-of-the-art. Now this is all happening in the cloud, the guide part. The television part's coming through our traditional MPEG platform. So you can click over to On TV. I'll come back to the guide in a moment, and you'll see the beginning of making it easier and more fun for the consumer. First thing you can do is you see what's on right now. I can see what's on all television. I can just say what's for movies, what's for kids, what sports is on, and it tells you it's a different way to navigate. Let's jump over to On Demand, and you'll begin to see a whole different feel, more like you have from web-based services and from iPads, and that's because that's where it's coming from, yet it's happening on your TV right now. Another thing is you have a new remote, much simpler. The remote uses RF, which is fantastic. It means the box can go anywhere and the remote works. It's not line of sight. That's right off the bat, a great feature. Now we have this next generation of Xfinity operating in Georgia. This really is live in its product nature, and it can be innovated and changed on the fly in the cloud, and then it changes all over the country instantaneously. Okay, so let's go back and start with the guide. So the first thing, we have over 1,000 channels at Comcast that have some sort of programming on them, and I want to watch something. I don't know what channel it is, so let's say I want to watch HBO. Well, on our guide, we put in the numbers, we also put the letters like a cell phone. So you just type HBO, and it immediately does a quick search. There's other searches I'll show you in a second, but the quick search says, did you need HBO in high def? I say, yup, that's what I wanted. It then goes and shows Duplicity is on, a movie on HBO. So I click on that, and it now is getting all this from the cloud. So literally one click here goes out over the RF to the box, out over our network to Denver and back that fast. And then we say, okay, I want to watch, I want to record. We announced a partnership this week with Facebook where you, and I'll come and talk about that in a moment, where you could say whether you like it or do other things here. You can see what other times Duplicity is playing. But what I like is we've begun to now add some of that personalization that I was talking about back in 2008. So if you say, what's more like this, it instantly finds things like Duplicity that are available. One of the points we want to make is not just available on television, but it's also available on demand, or it's something I've already recorded that's like Duplicity. So it's beginning to use the databases. I don't think anybody's done this yet, or can do this in many cases, go across all of your television viewing options. You could also say, well, I want to look at the cast and crew and see if there's other things. Well, do I like other Clive Owen movies, or other Julia Roberts, or other Paul Giamatti? And all this data has now been synced up. It would then give it to you across a variety of choices, and you can go out and get extras. So let's go back to live TV. And now, another feature is, how do you search? So is search a destination, or is search just part of your television viewing experience? So I'm sitting here, we're in Chicago. Gee, I'm interested in the Cubs. By the way, not really. But, so we sit there and we take our keyboard. It doesn't have to just be a channel. So I type in C, U, B, and it did a longer search this time, and it would say, okay, did you mean QVC, which is channel 282, also what Cubs, C-U-B spelled out. No, I meant Chicago Cubs, so we click into there. Now, what you'll see, what comes up is a couple of interesting choices. First thing is, would you like some more information? So let's click that for a second. And it would say, now right now, we don't have a lot more information on the Cubs, because that's where we are at this moment. In a couple months, this would say, the Cubs are playing right now, the Cubs played last night, here are the standings, here's the box score, here's the game right now. Because again, we're just pulling it from the cloud. But it also lets you set a favorite, so let's go ahead and do that, and we'll come back and see that later. So let's go back to my search results, and what you'll see here is sort of what I was saying is, okay, I've recorded a game, but I also have a game on the MLB network that's coming up. There's a game on Comcast Sportsnet, there's a game on Fox, and oh, by the way, the Cubs were featured, their management, in an on-demand undercover boss. It allows you, as the viewer, to say, I'm passionate about the Cubs. I'm not necessarily passionate where they are at this moment. You solved that problem for me, so I know where I can view it. Okay, let's go back to watching television. Another popular feature with our remotes today is the last button. So, in this case, we push the last button, and rather than changing channels, it gives you the last 9 things you were doing. So we can see we were watching ESPN, but it also incorporates not just channels, but on demand and DVR. So in the case of this example, I was watching The Voice on demand. I then wanted to switch to the game. I switched. Now I want to come back and go back to where I was in my on-demand The Voice. I just click that, and it will pick up right where I left off. So the last button now allows you to just make it all seamless. Okay, and speaking of on-demand, let's take a look at that. So this is obviously now 25, 30,000 choices and growing to infinity, we hope. How do we make it easier for you to navigate on demand? And we've seen a surge in usage as we continually improve our content. So first thing you say, oh, let's look at movies on demand. Again, beautiful art, because this is the latest computer, not yesterday's box. It's happening in the cloud, all this artwork and all this data. You could say, okay, let's look at comedy movies. This is very similar to how our iPad app works. We want this to be on all devices, this same kind of experience. Again, coming from the cloud, it can do that. Let's look at kids. So, on-demand search and the way to go back and forth just is totally a whole lot easier and better and more fun and more rich and going to be able to be a great store for us. Let's go back to watching The Voice. Let's go to My TV. I want to personalize. So one of the things that comes up is my preferences. So I have series that I like. I have personalities that I like. Here's the Cubs. We favorited. So there's teams that I like. There's obviously channels that I like. And all that is available. But what's great here is we're now getting into the recommendations based on your preferences. And so we begin to give you, based on the shows you DVR'd, or the shows, or the channels, or the stars, or the teams that you preferenced, here's a whole bunch of content that you might want to consider, again, across live, future viewing, and on demand. Okay, let's jump back to The Voice. And the final thing to show is apps. Again, being in the cloud, literally the clouds in Chicago this week, you can see the weather. By the way, it's going to get really nice just before we all leave. You can go to traffic. You can personalize this to your route. You can see the red is where we all have a little traffic getting here to the convention center. In our Georgia, if there's traffic cameras, you can see the cameras on your route. It can give you all the data. Pandora. No shares in the IPO, but you can take your Pandora account and pull it into watching on your TV and listening on your TV to all the various artists that you have set up your Pandora account. It just ports right over. But the one I want to show you just for a second is Facebook. So the first thing that happens is you have your news feed. So you're still watching television up in the left corner, but you can check your news feed. That's sort of the opener. But what we've done with Facebook that I don't think they've done with anyone else, and is a first, is something we're calling Friend Trends. And what that allows you to do, as you'll see, is if your friends like it, and like can be while they're watching Hulu, they can be on Netflix, they can be on the web, they can be watching TV. It takes the totality of their Facebook relationships, and if they like something, then they can, it pops up. So in this case, Sam's friends like Grey's Anatomy from any of those sources. And it allows him to say, that's something I want to explore right now. He clicks on that, doesn't have to go anywhere else, and gives him all the choices. If it happened to be on now, he can watch it, go right from there. He could record it, he could tell people he likes it, doesn't like it. And so it's a beginning of social networking, television experience. The guide becomes what your friends tell you to watch, not what linear alphabet tells you your options are. So it's any way you want to consume this, we think it is the beginning of the next generation by taking the brains and putting it in the cloud. So that's Xfinity TV.